Hello everyone, how's it going? Now, I just want to talk to you as I drink my vanilla latte out of my OCD recovery mug. I just want to talk to you about how, when you're triggered, it is going to feel like you have made no progress whatsoever. And you also must remember that you will forget what it's like not being triggered. Because when you are triggered, it's almost like you are possessed in that chase for certainty, and you're desperately chasing relief. You're seeking relief no matter what. And this is why when people are triggered and when people are desperate for relief, it can often be likened to an addict chasing a drug. Because when an OCD sufferer is feeling very uncomfortable and very panicked and very anxious and ultimately very triggered, they think the only way out of that is by doing a compulsion, as in getting relief or getting rid of a feeling or getting some kind of certainty or avoidance or whatever it may be. And this is why people can go to all lengths to get relief, go to all kinds of depths just to get relief from OCD or whatever the trigger was. And that's how serious this disorder is. I know many times when I was triggered, I completely discounted how far I come on my journey, because, I remember even getting triggered like 18 months in. So I first had a session with Rob in July 2019. And I remember getting triggered, start of 2021. And I was in a pretty good place. It was 18 months of quite hard work. It took me about 6 months to start taking recovery work seriously. But I was in a much better place 18 months in. But OCD was morphing, it was switching, it was moving around. And I remember it suddenly latched like an existential fear. And I was set on getting relief, desperate. And in that moment, if you asked me, have you made any progress? I would say no. I would have said I was worse than I was when I first came in, because that's how it feels. Don't underestimate how it's going to feel when you are triggered, right? You would do anything just to get relief in that moment. And this is why that when those moments happen, we have to resist compulsions as if our life depends on them, because your quality of life does depend on it. And it's easy to say that when you are relatively calm and when you are relatively relaxed and at ease and not triggered, it's easy to say, I won't ever slip up. I've made great progress. I won't ever do compulsions again. But when those testing moments do happen, and boom, OCD weaves in and out of fears and finds a way in there, it's then. That is the testing moment as to not cave in to that compulsion. Okay, but I just have to really highlight to you, and I'm going to repeat this because it's so important to remember, and you must remember this, is that when you are feeling on edge and when you're having a rough day with OCD or a rough time, rough week, rough month, whatever the time period is, you will forget what it's like to be calm. You will forget what life is like not being triggered. Because when you are triggered and when you're going through a rough period of OCD, it seeps into every aspect of your life. For me, it drained all excitement. It drained all enthusiasm out of me, all passion, right? When I was triggered by something, let's say I was going on holiday, I would be completely miserable even thinking about that holiday, going on holiday, being on holiday, even just thinking about the holiday, it wouldn't fill me with enjoyment or excitement. I'd be, I have no feelings at all, quite apathetic. I would just lose all of that because I was so glued in and consumed by whatever I was triggered by. And I was so locked up in that cycle and so desperate to get relief in that moment that any external thing around me seemed rather irrelevant. It seemed meaningless. It seemed not worthwhile. I remember falling down the trap of what's the point? What's the point of doing anything? And very sadly, I neglected my career. I neglected my future when I was stuck with OCD because I was so hell-bent on getting relief. And I was so determined to get certainty on this thing in the past because I felt like if I didn't get certainty on this thing in the past, then I couldn't be at peace and I couldn't enjoy my life. And that's how it felt, and that's how real it felt. It wasn't just a case of it's just OCD, move on, because this is why it's just OCD doesn't work, because I was convinced it wasn't OCD because of the realness. OCD is very good at convincing you that it isn't OCD. That's the nature of this disorder. That's how it operates. This vanilla latte is absolutely amazing, by the way. Absolutely delicious. I do love the lattes. Caramel latte is my favourite for sure. I've only just really got into coffee as well, funny enough. I've always been a big tea drinker here in Britain. Love a tea. But lattes or coffees in general have never really appealed to me. Well, I say that, I never really got into them. I never really started drinking them. Ever since I started buying some lattes, I can't seem to stop. They're really nice. So, yeah, and people often talk to me on calls, and I can tell when they're triggered. And it's understandable, by the way. There's no shaming being triggered, because ultimately triggers are a blessing in disguise. Because if you've got the right approach to them, you realize that when you are triggered, they're actually a great learning opportunity. They're a great chance to see, well, what triggered me? A great chance for me to build my frustration tolerance and learn to wear the symptoms and learn to wear the discomfort and zip up that uncomfortable coat and embrace all the feelings. But ultimately, it's showing you what you're scared of. It's showing you what work you need, what work needs to be done with the beliefs. It shows you what fears you have and the irrational beliefs that you're holding. Many of my triggers along the journey, they opened my eyes, and they were the key for the next level on recovery, because it showed me where I was vulnerable. It showed me where some of my perspectives were still quite faulty. It showed me where some of my beliefs were still quite rigid and quite black and white. So it gave me it signaled to me, hey Sam, look, the fact this has triggered you significantly is because you are still quite irrational around this particular topic, around this particular subject, around this particular fear, around this particular worst case scenario. So it showed me, it guided me, it directed me, and hey, look, it pointed out, look, you need to work on this, Sam, because obviously that emotional reaction was way too extreme. You acted as if your life was about to end in that moment. So obviously it shows that you have very rigid, irrational, extreme beliefs around this particular thing. So once you start dealing with it or start approaching it in a very robust mindset where you think, well, if I'm triggered, although I don't like the feelings, I'm going to learn from this. And then it actually does wonders with fear of fear. Because then you're not scared of OCD, because you start taking it in your stride, you start building momentum. The reason I'm not scared of OCD today is because even if it came back full-blown, full tilt tomorrow morning, it doesn't fill me with terror at all, because although I wouldn't like that, I wouldn't like the feelings of being stuck with OCD, obviously, but I know that it would teach me so much. I know that I could learn from that. I know I could see that, okay, I'm obviously gone wrong a bit here. Where have I gone wrong? And I could work my way through that, and I could break the beliefs down and so on. And I know that it would be down to me to put my life on hold due to suffering. Now, I'm not saying it's easy. OCD suffering is definitely not easy. Trust me, I don't need persuading on that one. I've been there firsthand, in tears all the time, crying my eyes out, completely neglected of all life, completely bombarded by chronic guilt, chronic shame, housebound with particular themes such as POCD and false memory and relevant OCD, all linked in. I felt like my life was over. It truly did. So in every day felt a torturous, tormenting cycle in my head where I couldn't escape from. So I certainly don't need persuading on the difficulties of OCD. But the difference is today is that I'm not scared of OCD coming back because I don't catastrophize it. I would just see it as an inconvenience. I would see it as this is a frustration, this is annoying, I'd much rather it not there. Would it impact me? Well, yeah, it would impact my feelings. Yeah, it would compromise how I feel in the day, but it certainly wouldn't stop me physically. Even if I was, fatigued, or even if I was exhausted and drained due to the symptoms, it certainly wouldn't prove as a total and utter hindrance or a blockage to my life or my day, because I've dealt with OCD many times before, and quite simply, I'm not scared of OCD affecting my life. Right? I'd much rather it not there, but I would see it as an opportunity. I really, really would, and I say that confidently because even when I was coming out of the other end, if you wish, of the OCD journey, when I was sort of 2-3 years into the journey and really getting, to a solid place and a very stable place in my mental health, what I was noticing is that my setbacks were not lasting as long. And even when they were, I was actually seeing them as a great chance for me. I was actually pouncing at the opportunity to learn from the setback. So I took all sting out of the setback. I took all, power away from the trigger and the relapse, because straight away I was thinking, okay, what can I learn from this? Plus, I could see it as a great chance to build my frustration tolerance. I could see it as a great chance to overcome. And ultimately, it propelled me to the next level on the recovery journey, if you wish. So it's easy to think that your life is over when you're triggered. It's easy to think that because the symptoms are so intense, and it will feel like your life's on the line. It will feel like your life's going to come crumbling down any moment. You know what it's like. It feels like you're drowning, doesn't it? And let's say a week before you got majorly triggered, you were doing really well. You think you're in the clear. You think you're out of the woods, and you got to be a bit careful of that complacency. You got to be a bit careful of that arrogance and that cockiness where you feel like you've nailed it, and then OCD gives you that polite reminder that, hello, I'm still here, and it will do that, and it likes doing that, and it will show you that. But it's how you then react to it. Okay, you can't ever then be immune from triggers. You can't then get to a position where, oh, I'll never be triggered again. No, never. Because then it will find a way in, especially if you're relatively new, especially if you're still having, turbulent times on this journey, especially if you're still finding it quite bumpy at times. You've got to expect it to come in, but allow it to come in. And then when it does come in, it's how you react to it, it's how you deal with it, it's how you view it, it's your perspective on it, and ultimately what you can get from it. Take advantage of the setback, take advantage of the relapse, take advantage of the trigger. Okay, you can't just be getting triggered and then jumping to the notepad straight away to dispute. No, you've got to learn to wear it. You've got to see it as a great chance to increase your discomfort tolerance and your frustration tolerance. But ultimately, when it lingers, when it latches, when it really stings you real hard, it's thinking, well, why? What am I scared of here? What's the fear? What are the irrational beliefs here? What's my crooked thinking here? What are my faulty perspective? What needs work? Because OCD is a fear cycle, right? You're scared of something. And OCD fuels and it thrives and it breeds off fear. So anything that you hold as an absolute terror, OCD will target. And any kind of behavior that you do, so the compulsions to try and prevent the fear, any kind of reassurance that you seek, anything that you so desperately chase, such as certainty and control and comfort, and anything that you do to get rid of a feeling, to escape discomfort, or just to, any kind of coping mechanism, you've got to be careful with that, because that just fuels the OCD cycle, right? For example, let's say you're triggered and you've been doing really well. Let's say you've had like a 3-month spell of doing excellently well with your OCD, and you get triggered, and then you suddenly go on a desperate search for certainty. That isn't innocent. That isn't harmless, right? OCD doesn't just allow that. That's breeding it. That's allowing OCD to thrive, because you're letting OCD come back in. Me personally, I remember what I used to do. I'd be doing really well, but I had fear of fear. It's just sort of start of 2021, where I was doing really well and I had fear of fear. So although I was in a solid place, I was still absolutely terrified of it coming back, because I knew what it was like, because it was still fresh in the memory of what OCD was like on my darkest, worst days. So I was still terrified of it, which is totally natural, but I obviously still had irrational beliefs around OCD, and oh God, it'd be the worst thing ever. It must not come back. It's terrible, horrendous, absolutely awful. It's life ending kind of thing. And that's how I viewed it in the moment. And so what would happen, I'd get triggered and then I'd completely catastrophize. And the thing that would have happened is that because I'm clinging on to the feeling of being peace, or being calm, or just I'm clinging on to the not triggered feeling, right? So then I'm watching out like a hawk. I'm going, oh, I can't be triggered. Like hyper aware, hyper focused on any trigger, or anything that could possibly get in. And then that would then allow it to come in. That would make it come in. That would sort of, stir OCD up, because I'm trying to keep it at bay. And that is the last thing to do, because that's like waving a red rag to a bull. That's like saying, hey, come on in. And then OCD will come on in. What you'll find is that, the less scared of it you are, the less likely OCD is going to play a part in your life, because it knows you're scared of it. So then it's going to ramp up and try and find a way in, and that's how it operates. But what I was saying there is that the compulsions that I was doing, even if they felt quite innocent, maybe it was like checking compulsions, maybe it was just checking to see, that. Even if it was just something as, checking to see if I left the lights on, or checking to see if I left the oven on, and checking to see if I left the candles on, or just a slight bit of avoidance because I felt a bit of discomfort maybe, or maybe just seeking a bit of reassurance. Maybe I just felt a bit on edge and I sort of over-explained something to my partner, and that was a bit of confession, reassurance. And then what I did, I could tell that me doing that was opening the door. It was keeping the door slightly open for OCD. And before you know it, OCD's put its foot through the door and it comes steaming in. It comes storming through the room. And here we go. It's an OCD party now. And that's what it was like. So as soon as you start allowing the smaller compulsions, and I see it a lot as a coach, I see people doing very well, and credit to them, they've got themselves into a solid position, yes, with our guidance, but ultimately they've got themselves into a very good position, so well done to them. But what will happen is that they'll start justifying the odd compulsion here and there because they're just, maybe they got a bit complacent, or maybe they've got a bit cocky, or maybe they thought they were out of the woods. And what's happened is they felt OCD started to build back up, and then they thought, oh, I don't like this, a bit on edge. They try and keep it at bay and just allow the odd compulsions to slip. Maybe there's a bit of avoidance going on. Maybe there's a bit of reassurance seeking. Maybe the odd Google comes in now and then. Maybe the odd mental solving, or just, I better work this thing out. I remember one time, actually, when I remember, what was it? I woke up the next day, and I remember this was sort of like 2021, so it was like just after COVID, where, the restrictions had been eased. And I remember I said something to like a friend or something, and I couldn't remember if I offended them. And, because I was in a good place now. I was 2 years into my journey. I was in a good place. I was really starting to embody unconditional acceptance. But the problem was that I was just, because I sort of given up with the disputing kind of thing. Not given up, but because I got a bit complacent with, I'm in such a good place now, it's fine, it won't bother me. So what was happening is that I needed to obviously work, and I was starting to think more irrationally again, and my crooked thinking was started to come back. And I remember waking up on times where I could feel the OCD pull to work out what you said the day before. Maybe I'd been out drinking, maybe I was slightly drunk and we were saying like jokes, and I said something and it might have offended somebody or whatever, or I might have done something wrong or bad or immoral or whatever it was. And I could just tell the OCD pull was coming back in and not working it out. And where I used to go wrong was I'd try and justify. I'd be like, oh, fuck it. Let me just work out what happened the night before. I just need to get relief on this. I was drunk. I need to get relief. Maybe I'll feel a bit more anxious the next day because I was drunk. So I was nursing a bit of a hangover. So I thought, I'll just get relief. Let me just figure out what happened the night before. But as soon as I did that, I'm opening the door to the rumination. I'm opening the door to the figuring out, the solving, the analysing, the trying to get to the bottom of things again. And that's what I was doing. So I was letting OCD thrive, and I was letting OCD breed, and OCD was pouncing on that, because as soon as I then worked that one thing out, I thought, okay, I figured out what happened the night before. I had the illusion that I figured out because I never truly got certainty on it. I just figured out what I said, and maybe I sent that person a text message. Did I offend you? He said, no, don't worry about it. You didn't offend anybody. Don't worry, it's fine. Okay, fine, brilliant. And then what I then noticed was then OCD was scanning. It started then scanning for other things, and it thought, oh, okay, if he's allowed that compulsion, what about that thing 2 years ago, Sam, that you're still unsure of? What about that? And then here we go. Here comes the rumination. Here comes the analysing, because you've opened the door, you've allowed it to come in. So an OCD is gonna pounce on that, and it's gonna grip, and it's gonna find a way in even more. It's like what you've done is you've opened that door, OCD's put its foot, when you open the door, and as you go to shut again, someone might put their foot there to stop the door. OCD's done that, it's put its foot there to stop the door fully closing. So you can't quite close it. And now it's got a foot in the door now, and you've allowed that foot to come in the door. So boom, as soon as you try and close it, it keeps getting in, and before you know it, it's put its whole leg through the door, and it's in. It's having a party in your house. And that's what happens if you allow the odd one. So it's key that you have compassion for when you do slip up, because you will slip up, right? When you're triggered, like I'm saying at the start of this video, when you're triggered, it'll feel like you're back at square one. It'll feel worse than square one. There's no such thing as square one, by the way, because even when you're triggered, you've learned so much. You'd have overcome so much. You'd have changed so much of your thinking. You would have learned so much along the way, but it will feel like you've made zero progress. So always remember that. So square one doesn't exist. But the problem is that OCD will convince you that you're worse than square one, that you were worse than you ever came in. So then you start justifying the compulsions, or then you get scared of going back to square one. So then you start going, oh, okay, I better do some safety checking compulsions. I better work this one out. I better avoid this just in case OCD comes back. Oh no, not for my wedding day. Oh no, not for my holiday. Oh no, not for my big day at work. Not for my job interview that I got on Monday. No, it can't come back for that. So as soon as you start opening the door, boom, OCD puts its foot there, and boom, it comes barging back in unannounced, and it will do that. So something to be aware of for sure. Never underestimate the realness of triggers. Never underestimate how OCD will convince you you've made zero progress. It's very good at doing that. And never underestimate your reaction when you're triggered, right? You can almost feel possessed, right? You know, I can see all kinds of reactions when somebody's triggered, quite erratic reactions, random reactions, just doing anything. And we've got to compare ourselves to an addict. We're chasing that drug, we're chasing that certainty, we're chasing that relief. And OCD sufferers can go to the extreme lengths to obtain that relief. But the problem is, all that's doing is fueling OCD and giving OCD power and making it stronger, not only making it worse. So it's in those testing times that even when we've been doing well, or even when we're relatively calm, when OCD rears its head, when you get triggered, it's how you react to it. But always remember that it's going to feel as real as it can possibly get. This one's going to feel different. You're going to feel treatment resistant. This one's going to feel like the exception. When that happens, it's sticking to the tools, wearing the discomfort, embracing all the uncomfortable feelings, sitting with all the feelings you don't want to sit with, rolling with uncertainty, resisting compulsions as if your life depends on it, keeping up healthy distractions, keeping up a good, solid, healthy life structure, and just keep moving forward. Keep breaking down the beliefs. See the triggers, see the moments that you feel like you were never going to overcome as a great opportunity, a great learning chance for you, a great learning curve to propel you to the next level, to give you the key to unlock the next level on your recovery journey. Very important whilst I just finished this amazing vanilla latte. Now, if you are interested in one-to-one coaching calls, please email phil@ocdrecovery.com and you get in touch with the coaches here. So I'm Sam, you have Rob, Nick, Momin, Gemma and Elliot. The team is growing so big now, which is amazing to say. So there's so many coaches, I nearly forget all the names. So email phil@ocdrecovery.com to get in touch and we can book you in. We aren't very busy, but we aim to get you in as soon as we can, even next day at times. You know, you can contact us and a slot can come through and we can, right, we'll see you today, because we want to see you ASAP to get the recovery journey started and get that ball rolling towards recovery. Anyway, guys, take care, look after yourself, and we'll speak again. Bye-bye.